Welcome back. Well, from the Ten Commandments and the greatest story ever told to the Passion of the Christ, Hollywood has been tackling stories of faith and religion for years. And one of the latest films to do so, but in a bit of a different way, is the Coen Brothers' dark comedy, A Serious Man. It tells the story of Larry Gopnik. He's a 1960s family man whose wife is actually leaving him for one of his colleagues. On top of that, his chances for tenure at the local university are being threatened, and his kids have problems of their own. For help, Gopnik then turns to three rabbis. The movie is told in the typical Coen Brothers fashion, and for a closer look rather at A Serious Man, I'm joined now by Paul Levinson. He is professor of communications and media studies at Fordham University, and he is also the author of, most recently, New Media, published by Penguin Academics. And Paul, thank you so much for joining us on Currents.
Great to be back here.
Yeah, again, you came before.
Yeah.
We really like you. We appreciate it. So I saw the Coen Brothers film this morning, actually, and it deals with this man's plight as we described it, and sort of the banalities and of what it takes to get through life. Tell us a little bit about why you think this film is significant from a faith perspective.
Well, it deals with an issue that was first raised, maybe it was raised earlier, but the first we know about it being raised was in the book of Job, where someone is tested, his faith is tested. All these terrible things happen to him. This happens to everyone in great and minor ways. If there's a deity there somewhere, and if the deity is good, why do bad things happen to people? And there really is no completely rational answer. You have to have faith that you're being tested.
And I think that really hits on the main cores, because a lot of what he has to go through, he seeks counsel. He goes to the rabbis. He wants to have some answer to some of the reasons that things are happening. His wife is having an affair. His kids don't pay attention to him. One of the tests that he has actually is that he's bribed by this student to give him a passing grade when the kid actually failed. And I won't give it away, but struggles with that throughout the course of the movie.
Yeah, well, first of all, the rabbi part I found delightful, being Jewish, because this is really part of the Jewish tradition, that rabbis don't have answers. Really taking, they're almost like psychologists. If you have a question, they sort of put a mirror up to the question and put it back to you. What do you think? And actually, it's a good idea because it gets you to think more clearly and deeply about the issues that are facing you, rather than giving you some kind of preconceived answer. So none of those rabbis had any specific advice for our hero other than getting him to think more about the situation. The academic part of it I thought was very interesting as well, because he was, as you mentioned, given a test there as well. I do have to say, though, of the two parts of the movie, the Jewish part and the academic part, the Jewish part I found far more realistic than the academic part.
Yeah, being a professor, you would know,
because in the academic part in the movie, again, without giving anything away, he's up for tenure, and there's a whole discussion about how that proceeds. And there was a part of that that was not very realistic. They asked him at the last minute, could you give us your publications?
Right.
In my world, you got to submit it a year earlier.
You would know that way ahead of time, of course. A little bit back, though, to the faith part about it. When he is seeking the counsel of these rabbis, and essentially, like you said, they really don't give him, they don't proffer any solutions or answers. What they do tell him, and I don't remember the Jewish word for it, I don't know the Jewish word, but I heard it several times in the movie, is basically to just sort of have faith or to trust in God. That's basically the translation that I got. Or, you know, the Creator would know things that you don't. So keep on going, be a serious man, be a good man, which he had tried to do before and didn't realize that things were crumbling down around him.
Right. I mean, there's an old story which I always loved about a rabbi who is visited by a couple who tell him they're about to split up, they can't take it, and they ask him for help. So the rabbi goes to the woman first and says, listen, we know what your husband is. He's a philanderer. He gambles away his money, but you're a good woman. Just stick with him. Then he goes to the husband and says, listen, we know what a terrible wife you have. She fools around with men. She doesn't cook well. And so the couple then talk to each other, and they get enraged because the rabbi has given this conflicting advice. So they go to see the rabbi and they say, what kind of rabbi are you?
Sure.
You say we're both right. How can we both be right? And the rabbi thinks for a minute and says, you know something? You're right too. So they never give answers. And what the purpose of that is, beyond the humor of it, which the Coen Brothers show very beautifully, is to get you to think more clearly about the situation. Don't look for pre-digested answers. It's almost the complete antithesis of, say, Googling today, where you can look anything up and find an answer.
And there's a solution out there, there's a response. And he was a math professor in this, and you know, obviously we think of math as an exact science, and even that was brought up as one of the things, is saying, well, no, there's no proof in the proof theory, or in the proof. It's a mathematical term. What, you know, the equivalent, if you will, of a rabbi would be like a priest, right? And a lot of times people, you know, priests will do pastoral care, and they'll hear the ails of their parishioners and whatnot. What do you think this connection then is that they would have through the human connection, the rabbi or the priest or whatever, and then to God? Is there a conduit there anymore for us, or is this telling us, this movie perhaps suggesting that there isn't anymore, that you need to have that dialogue more directly? What do you think?
Well, a very important difference between Judaism and Christianity is that rabbis are not really priests, even though we think of them as priests. A rabbi is actually a teacher. In Yiddish, a lera, someone who basically has information and can give you some general guidance, but doesn't claim to have a direct connection in any way to God. There actually were originally priests in the Jewish religion, but when the original state of Israel was destroyed millennia ago, that was the end of the priesthood.
What is the takeaway morally from this movie as far as faith is concerned and one's human's belief in God?
The takeaway is you need to have faith to get through all the vicissitudes of life. Good things happen, but bad things are going to happen. There are no guarantees. And you have to have some kind of faith that if you hang in there, sooner or later things will work out.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Paul Levinson. We really appreciate that. He is the professor of communications and media at Fordham, and media studies rather, at Fordham University. And Matt, let's send it back over to you.